You should be used to it. She became a good wife, but she secretly cheated on her husband with another man in a public restroom. She thinks no one will discover their secret, but she didn't realize it had been going on for so long. It seems like his wife loves betrayal. She didn't confront him. Instead,
The man chose.
silence. He hired a private investigator. The woman didn't even consider that a moment of emotional outburst, the reason for slowly falling apart their relationship into a nightmare with no certainty. Connie is a woman in middle age. She still possesses natural charm. She has a son, Charlie, and a successful husband, Edward. They live in a luxurious villa on the outskirts of the city, a life that is admirable, a family that many dream of, but in an instant, the peace of their happy home was shattered. One day, Connie went to the city center to shop for essentials. On his way home, he was caught by a powerful storm. He struggled to catch a taxi because of the heavy rain and wind. In the midst of the storm, he got stranded and accidentally ended up in someone's arms of a young man she didn't know. That's where the wheels of fate began to turn. The man was Paul, in his 20s, handsome and charming. Connie sat on the steps to rest her injured knee. She asked Paul to call her a taxi, but no drivers were able to get through because of the storm. Paul noticed the wound on Connie's knee. He offered to take her to his apartment to treat it. She hesitated. Connie, but with Paul's inherent charisma, his funny smile and innocent appearance, she was compelled to go along. Connie didn't know that that would be the beginning of something she would deeply regret. Inside Paul's apartment, he noticed the stacks of books, since it was a bookshop. While Connie cleaned her wound and got ready to leave, Paul offered her a hot coffee. Suddenly, Connie remembered her son Charlie just arrived from school. That's why she asked for permission to use the phone and call the nanny. Connie didn't know that with her long legs and naturally graceful movements, she was inherently attractive. Paul already fell on her while she was talking to the nanny. Suddenly, Paul approached and placed ice on her wound. With the sudden touch of their skin, her world seemed to stop. At the sudden contact of their skin, felt like the world stopped for Connie. She immediately ended the call and said goodbye. Before she left, Paul gave her a book. He said to open to page 23. That's where the enticing clues are written. Connie blushed. She immediately closed the book, forcing herself to maintain her silence. But on her way home, she couldn't settle down. She felt embarrassed about what she was feeling and confused about why she felt something unusual toward a stranger. He tried to force himself to forget what happened, but over and over keeps returning to his mind the eyes of Paul, his voice, and the mysterious book. At night, Connie searched for her husband's embrace, but in the midst of their applause, Charlie suddenly cried like a lightning strike. Sam, angry in the present moment. The next day, she became nervous again because of intense curiosity. She took the book Paul gave her. A business card fell out from the middle. Paul's contact. She tried to throw it away, but she was overcome by her own desire. She called Paul. For a moment she heard his voice, trembled through her entire body. It seemed Paul was expecting her call. During their conversation, she was invited to return to his apartment. This time, Connie no longer hesitated. While standing in front of the door, her heart raced. When Paul opened the door, the same temptation-filled room greeted her, but now wasn't gentle. Paul. Slowly, he removed his coat and stroked her skin. Connie no longer resisted. Paul took her hand. Connie felt that she was slowly being pushed toward a dangerous cliff. Get out. He was absolutely terrified of remorse. In order to cover up his sin, he bought gifts for Edward. His spouse didn't give him a thought because they believed that everyone was happy, but the outward agreement cannot silence the raging fire within Connie. She can't erase from her mind every moment with Paul. She didn't realize that Edward had been standing by her side for a long time. A few days had passed. Connie could no longer hold back her feelings. She visited again at Paul's apartment under the pretext of delivering a gift. This time, Paul was more aggressive. She invited him to dance. The flow of emotions moved quickly. Connie gave in. But in the midst of their closeness, the music suddenly stopped. Her dream was cut short. She ran out quickly, but with the intensity of the feelings Paul had stirred up, she was completely captivated. The heat of Paul's body was like a fire that ignited within Connie. The flush of her cheeks, the rapid beating of her heart, signs of a thirsty soul in the midst of age and longing. As they busied themselves with forbidden pleasures, they didn't know that there was danger gradually drawing near. In the days to come, their meetings became more frequent. Paul used every means to give Connie pleasure in different ways. Sometimes, he invited Connie to experience the unusual, a lure inside a public restroom. And there, she was consumed by the sin that Connie could no longer control. Because of the sins she could no longer resist, every night she rejects her husband. Because by the day, she's already overwhelmed by the sin caused by Paul. Because of Connie's change in behavior, Edward began to doubt. He used to not notice it before, but now, something is troubling his mind. Connie thought she had the situation under control, that she was safe while secretly savoring the sin he's hiding. But he never imagined how steep the price would be. Until one day, they were caught by Paul, one of Edward's employees, while eating at a restaurant. He immediately informed Edward, a bomb, ready to explode and destroy their family. Although Edward didn't want to believe the truth, he couldn't stop the growing doubt. So she hired a private investigator to determine if her husband was really cheating on her. One night at a private gathering, she pretended she had business trip to lower Connie's guard. The next morning, while Edward was out of the house, Connie, meanwhile, she was busy preparing her underwear, ready to meet Paul. Paul took her to a cinema. In the midst of the movie's noise, they were again consumed by forbidden desire, but they didn't know. Every move, they are being photographed by the investigator. The next day, Connie was supposed to go to Paul's house, but she ran into her closest friend. She was forced to join her in an unexpected get-together. That's when a friend recounted a bitter experience, the truth that betrayal always leads to disaster. When Connie's heart was stolen upon her return, she decided she was going to end it all. But when she went up to Paul's apartment, she found him with another woman. Connie's anger flared from overwhelming resentment. She slapped Paul in front of everyone. But because of his sweet words, Paul was tamed again. And once again they were plunged into sin, right there in the apartment hallway. On the other hand, Edward now holds the photos from the investigator. In each photo, as Connie embraces him, Paul, as if daggers were piercing Edward's heart. By the intensity of emotion, he went to see Paul. At his apartment, he found that the bed was in disarray and the crystal ball was there, that he himself gifted to his wife. This is where his anger finally exploded. Edward hurt Paul. With the crystal, ketchup splattered like a river, flowed to Paul, fell to the floor, and as he looked, Paul was finished, trembled, his knees. That's when Connie called. She left this message. She wants to end the relationship. One final, cutting, painful message. If only Connie had said the truth all along, we might have avoided the tragedy. But it's too late. That's why Edward deleted the message. He cleaned up the evidence, and Paul was shoved into the trunk of his car. That evening, while assuming they were just watching their child's performance, he pretended nothing had happened. But behind the couple's smiles, there are secrets rotting in the depths. It's night when Edward stood up, and in the darkness of midnight, he was thrown into a remote dump. A week passed. The body was found. The police started to investigate. And this led to Connie. When she heard the news, felt like her world collapsed. She pretended to be calm, but inside she was a mess. Pretended she just bought a book from Paul. But while she continued, he's the one the police are questioning. He's restless, in fear. As for Edward, behind the silence, he subtly avoids suspicion. He bolstered his alibi. Not even enough evidence to press charges against them. The two of them knew the storm wasn't over yet. It was still approaching. One day at the laundry shop, saw Connie in the pocket of Edward's jacket, an envelope. Inside it was a photo of the two of them, Paul and her. Her heart broke. When she got home, she saw the crystal ball. Inside the house, her suspicion deepened. It was Edward who finished off Paul. He slowly approached his wife. His voice was trembling. He asked her what the truth was. But instead of answering, Edward asked the question, "What did you do?" She did nothing, answered. In an instant, their eyes crossed. Filled with pain and hatred, Connie realized that her sin was not just betrayal of her husband's trust, but their lives were pushed to an abyss, with nothing to return to. While digging through their old photo album, she couldn't stop herself from crying. She took the crystal ball. Beneath it, there is a hidden message from Edward and a photo. Together, the three of them as a family. In such grief and remorse, Connie burned all the photos. As he watched the memory turn to ashes, the first day he met Paul. If only he had refused. If he had just taken a taxi right away, perhaps there wouldn't have been a tragedy. At the end of the story, no one knows if Edward was convicted by the law, but one thing is certain. Connie's betrayal was what pushed their marriage off a cliff into ruin. She thought that by hiding the truth, she could still save the family. But the truth is, there's nothing else she can do. This is a story of desire, betrayal, and destruction. And with every choice Connie made, value whatever you have. Be careful with every decision, because sometimes one wrong step is enough to collapse your whole world. Please subscribe to my channel. It would mean so much to me. Thank you very much.